Everyone, and welcome to the meeting. We will open with Edward Ellison, Upoko Te Runaka o Otako will open the meeting with a karakia.
E tūana hau, ki mihi atu ki a koe te koromatua, me ngā kai kauni hera, me te whānau pane, me ro tātou katoa hui mai nei, kei ruku te kaupapa nei. Tēnei karakia mō tātou nei wāhanga. He hona rei, he koro rei ki te atua, mau ngā rongo ki te whenua. Whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Whakarongo ake ai ki te tangi a te manu nei, mā tui a ki runga, tui a ki raro, tui a ki roto, tui a ki waho, tui te here tangata, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao, tui e te muka takata, i a waiki nui, a waiki roa, a waiki pāmamao ki te hono wairoa, uhi, wero, haramai te toki, haumi e hui e tai ki e. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora ngā mihi, Edward. Kia ora and welcome everyone. Today is a special meeting for our council to spend some time together, acknowledge the passing of our valued colleague and friend, former Mayor and Councillor Jules Raddick, to share memories and tributes of his contributions to our city and to present his certificate of service to his family. It's been a tough few weeks as we try to make sense of the loss of one of our own, one of our work family, and face the significant gap that Jules leaves in our council. Each of us had our own relationship with Jules over the years. It is often the loss that brings a stark reminder of what someone means to you. It's fitting that we take time here to reflect on his time with us, in this room, the heart of our council decision-making, the very long hours we all spent here together, mayors, councillors, mana whenua partners and staff, all working for our city, the moments we all shared here, sometimes fraught, sometimes hilarious, sometimes sombre, and sometimes with the great relief of a unanimous decision, such as supporting the hospital campaign. Jules and I were part of Council Intake 2019, along with Carmen Houlihan and Steve Walker. One of our first duties was a photo, an article by the ODT. Jules talked about balance and consensus in that first interview. Those two values were exhibited right through Jules' council career, including a focus on positive action and a dislike of councillors using inflammatory adjectives. So today, I will just try to use positive adjectives and keep away from setting off the fire sprinklers. I know Jules, Carmen and I were very grateful to councillors Andrew Wiley, Jim O'Malley and Rachel Elder, who showed us the ropes, providing mentorship and companionship as we learnt the council processes and how to get to grips with the complex system. The first 3 years were pretty tough, as any new councillors would know. We had a few cuppas at the Action Coaching HQ, where Jules generously hosted us, providing a safe space for learning and much needed peer support. In 2022, I was immensely grateful to be asked to be Jules' Deputy Mayor. Stepping up to that kind of leadership is a huge challenge, and we both learnt a lot along the way. It was great to stand alongside Jules as we hosted so many dignitaries, meetings and community events. Jules had the city in his heart and people loved him for it. So many people have talked to me of special moments with Jules, especially the time he took for a chat and a photo op, which meant so much to our community. Of course we had our ups and downs, but his ability to move on and work together was something I really appreciated. At one councillor training meeting after I became mayor, he wrote me a card of support that I really treasure. He was a good stalwart and a valued cornerstone of our council. To me, what was always special was the twinkle in his eye and his ready smile. Jules exuded positivity. We had a bit of fun with his local designer fashion knowledge. He knew I loved my op-shop finds or mum's hand-me-downs and was nearly always spot on with what designer I was channeling on a day. It was almost a pop quiz for him. So today I am wearing one of his favourite outfits. It was a real tribute to Jules how many mayors and chairs turned up to his service. Mayors from around the Otago Southern region and the Deputy Chair of Local Government New Zealand, Mayor Dan Gordon of Waimakariri, came to share their respect, grief and memories. They spoke to me of their liking and respect for him. Jules was active on regional and national governance levels, such a huge advocate for our city and making sure that our voice was there around the many tables and the knowledge gained used to advance our thinking. Scott Necklin, the acting CEO of Local Government New Zealand, said of Jules, considered and caring in his approach, always putting the community first, approaching his work with passionate determination, accompanied by a smile and humour. His contribution will be valued for years to come. The biggest thing we did together was fight for our hospital, wearing those t-shirts at every opportunity, even getting very told off for wearing them in front of the government at an LGNZ meeting, but determinedly sticking to his guns over our campaign. I know other mayors and councils were really impressed at his steadfastness and leadership over this time and our huge success in getting 35,000 people on our streets protesting for attention and then getting that attention and results. We should also acknowledge his determination to get infrastructure sorted, especially around finding the right solution for water service delivery, which was a huge amount of work, and to protect South Dunedin. He also got the budget balanced again last year, which was a really important achievement. It was a tough few years to be mayor, with a lot of hard work and challenges. Other mayors say it's a very lonely position. The weight of the mayoral chains is not just physical. My respect for Jules has grown as I fill those shoes and realise the pressures of the role and admire how he kept his cool and good humour throughout. I really treasured his insights he shared with me about mayorship, his support post-election and all of the plans he had for his passion projects during this council term. Presbyterian Support Otago CEO Robbie Mogany summed Jules' city relationship up well. Councillor Raddick cared deeply about Dunedin and its people. He understood that a city's strength is not only its infrastructure or economy, but how it supports those who are most vulnerable. As Mayor and throughout his life, Councillor Raddick showed generosity, thoughtfulness and a commitment to fairness and compassion. He listened, sought to understand and advocated for dignity and respect in ways that made a real difference. Councillor Raddick was a generous supporter of the work of Presbyterian Support Otago and the wider social services community. We are grateful for the encouragement and support Councillor Raddick offered over many years. His care for community will leave a lasting impact and his legacy will continue in the lives he touched and the city he helped shape. Thanks, Robbie, for those words which speak volumes about Jules's work with and for our community. Someone talked about the Jules-shaped hole in our lives. He's left a huge gap in our council and our hearts. I will miss his great energy as he fills the room with his positive smile, his enthusiasm for focused solutions and his boundless optimism. Jules will always be remembered by me as a very special part of our council, a treasured colleague and a valued contributor to our city. I'll end with a whakatauki, which I think reflects the service Jules gave to our city and to his importance in the fabric of our council. He aha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the most important thing in the world? It is people, people, people. Thank you to Jules' family, especially Pam and Genevieve, for allowing Jules to spend so much time with us, his work whānau, serving the people of our city. I'd now like to welcome Edward Allison, Upoko of Te Runaka o Ōtako, to speak.
I feel I should stand again. Tuatahi, tēnei mihi poraporaki ki aia, kia Jules, te rā rangatira, ko ihi atu ki te pō, haere kei runga tēnā ara whānui, a tāne piki ake kake ake, te ara tia. Haere ki te rā wahi Hawaii ki nui, Hawaii ki roa, Hawaii ki pāmamau, ki o rātou, e tātari ana ko koe, ki rātou o te hunga wairua, haere a moe mai, oki mai rā, kāti. Thank you for the opportunity to pay a tribute to Jules, and in particular in concert with the councillors and yourself, Your Worship the Mayor. As is the relationship we have with the city and other councils, but we as mana whenua, both Potaraki and Otago here in Ōtapoti particularly, we always build a relationship with the mayor of the time, and Jules was no exception to that. And we warmed to Jules' company, and there was our treaty festivals, there was our functions, our tangi, and celebrations that we would have during the course of the years that Jules was mayor. But also there were the meetings we would have, both at the Māori Participation Working Party and as we formed Te Pai. So, it builds into quite a strong working relationship. Different from what you have, really. It's a partnership and a respect that we have, and Jules always had a smile. When we saw him, he was always friendly and he always had plenty to say. He liked to talk, and when we attend the civic ceremonies around the town, and he obviously would attend many more than I attended, but I was always amazed at the amount of places that Jules would be, the people he would know, and the stories he would have to share and respond and speak off the cuff often at these places. So the role of the mayor is very important for the community, and for ourselves as mana whenua, it's important for us to have a strong relationship, a place where we can take a kōrero to. Very rarely do we have to raise issues beyond those situations, but we have in the past, not in Jules' tenure, but we have done so. But I just would like to pay tribute to the whānau, Pam, your wife, and whānau pane, kirimate, as we say, people who are grieving and will for some time. So we share with you your loss and bid you kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawa nui. We always say that. It's a very lonely place sometimes, and it's times like this which are important to talk, remember, and pay tribute to Jules. And these are important occasions, but there are many times when you're on your own. So we also think of those times as well. So we call you whānau pane or kirimati, those who are grieving for some time yet to come. So kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawa nui. And I just have to say it was a great shock to me to hear of Jules passing. He was a wee bit younger than me, so it's also a wake-up call. So I think I bid you all well in your work going forward. It's not easy around this table, from what I read in the papers. I don't always attend your meetings, but kia kaha, also all of you, kia maia, kia manawa nui. There is an important task there, and to carry on that legacy that Jules and previous mayors have continued. We wish you all the best going forward, and e tangi ana tonu mō o tātou nei ho rangatira ko Jules Radich. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora koutou, ngā mihi atu kia koutou. Katoa.
Kia.
ko whiwhinga, whairitanga ki te wairoto, ake ake, āmen, kia ora.
Kia ora. I'd now like to welcome CEO Sandy Graham to say a few words.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Sophie. And if I wasn't feeling emotional enough already, having to follow that beautiful waiata, certainly it's pretty emotional. So thank you, Mayor Sophie, for the opportunity to say a few words on behalf of staff, and thank you, Edward, for the ongoing support from mana whenua. To Pam, Genevieve and Vince, we've all been thinking of you and your loss. You've been in our thoughts and in mind and will continue to be. So Councillor Raddick, or Mr Mayor, a habit that I still hadn't managed to break, much to his amusement, is missed by us all. His death has been felt across the organisation at all levels. Cleaners, lifeguards, staff from operational areas and our office-based areas. Many have shared anecdotes with me. All of them, no matter where staff work, had a very similar theme. Everyone was shocked at his death. Everyone was surprised that he was 70. I've had numerous comments about how good he looked, and I suspect that he would have liked that. Genuine sadness. And then comments about how much they would miss his smile and his larger-than-life presence in the building, and his fruit bursts. All of us have memories of sitting with him and listening to his ideas, and he had many. He loved to discuss things, to be tested, and then to discuss them again, and sometimes again. I spent a lot of time with him and a great many hours exploring topics as wide-ranging as Japanese art, wine, groins, pipe design, how to win at underwater hockey, travel hacks, and groins again. We shared Wordles most mornings. He always enjoyed beating me and you, G, always. But he was loyal to staff, and he believed in that old adage of praise in public, reprimand in private. You can imagine the conversations we've had to have over the last 3 years. He was unrelentingly positive about the organisation, the community and the city. He was a kind person in a public and political environment that often wasn't. I miss him, and he'll be greatly missed by the organisation.
Thank you, Sandy, and I'd now like to welcome Bill Eklund to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors, for the honour of being invited here to speak today. Firstly, I'm just going to do what everybody's doing and acknowledge Pam and Genevieve and Vinny, and please be assured that our heartfelt thoughts are with you, and not just today, right through. Jill's passing was a shock to us all, and it's going to take some time to come to terms with. Local government is a tough gig, which I'm sure all of you will be aware. There are very strong opinions, criticism, and a lot of negativity. Today, however, I'm not here to dwell on negatives. Instead, I want to reflect on the values and leadership Jules brought to the city. Jules Raddick's focus was always on what was best for Dunedin as a whole, and on delivering the best possible service and opportunities that council could provide for all of us who live in this city. There's no doubt that his work on the hospital campaign was tireless. He led the council and the wider community in a positive and inspiring way, and I believe most people would agree with that. He grappled with complex long-term issues, trying to find a balance between parking needs and future public transport, which of course Jules had his own ideas about and shared them nicely. His continuing fight against coastal erosion at St Clair and beyond. These were challenges Jules never shied away from. Jules wanted to be a mayor who put others ahead of himself. and he did. While he was a man of great charisma, he was not ego-driven. His goal was simple: to deliver the best outcomes for everyone. He was a leader who valued his colleagues, all of his colleagues. He sought to include others in leadership roles and consistently encouraged debate and discussion, sometimes to the point where that openness came back politely to challenge him. But that was who he was. Jules would talk to anyone and everyone, often for sustained periods of time. His ability to listen was priceless. He reminded me of my father, someone who would listen carefully, offered advice when it was asked for, and never judged. I want to acknowledge councillors who stood by Jules during his time as Mayor and who supported him honestly and unwaveringly. We didn't always agree with him, but that was okay. We were able to express our views, our professional and constructively, and Jules respected that. At Jules's recent service, I had the privilege of hearing from people from many other parts of his life. It became clear just how deeply involved Jules was in so many things, and how often he supported others to be the best that they could be, simply because he cared. During the 2024 floods, Jules was hands-on with contractors, community members, all hours of the day and night, wanting to get to understand what more could be done to protect the vulnerable areas of the city. In the recent long-term plan, Jules was successful in securing funding for improvements to pipes and pumps in South Dunedin in the short to medium term. As a community and friends of Jules, we have lost an exceptional leader, a mentor, a true stalwart of the city. I hope his unrelenting care, compassion and kindness serve as a lesson to all of us. Thank you.
Kia ora, Bill, thank you. And I'd now like to welcome Carmen to say a few words. You okay?
Thank you, Mayor Barker, for letting us speak today. And I'd like to acknowledge Pam and Genevieve who are there. I'm not sure how well I'll go today. I keep crying all the time. This hasn't been great. Anyway, because Jules and I, we came on council in 2019. Along with Councillor Walker and Mayor Barker. It wasn't Mayor then, of course, Councillor Barker. So the four of us have all got that connected. We're all there together. And so it's a pretty good rate for mayoralty there, 50% rate out of councillors. And so 2 mayors out of our group so far. And so we... Jules and I hit it off, and just when you click with someone, you know, that you meet, and you just sort of, we just all had the same interests. We were constantly talking about politics all the time, and it was obviously our main issue when we started in that term was George Street and the one-way. We were trying to make it a two-way, and that was quite a heated debate regularly. The people who are involved in it will know what I'm talking about. It was pretty full on, and we were constantly trying to meet to work out how we're going to sort through it. And from the start, Jules showed that he was a leader, because when you're new at council, and people around here all new will realise that you don't often, there's a lot you don't know and you're learning on the job. So he gathered a few of us together, and we had a group that met we met every week, and it was our chance to talk about talk about things and learn from others who had more experience. And Jules instantly became a leader in that group. And so there was quite a few of us who met, and we all got to know a lot of the things that we know now because of that. And if you weren't there, he would be contacting you. Why aren't you coming? You know, so he made sure, like everybody said at his funeral, when you know, people, like for example, that he made a commitment to things like his water polo and his fishing and his bikes, and when he made a commitment to that meeting, he was always there and made sure we were there as well. So he stuck to things. He was very loyal, and he was very committed to the city. He was constantly thinking how he can help the homeless, and he had, and I'm sure Pam will accept, you know, he was constantly wanting to know what things he could do to help with the hospital. But something he was extremely good at was building relationships. And why I say that is that, and some people criticised him for this, but I think it was one of his strongest points, is that he got to know a lot of the MPs, you know, Labour, Green, National. Obviously, he honed in on all of them, but the main ones were the ones who were in government at the time, who he could have the biggest influence with, especially around the hospital. And what Jules did was he got to know them that well that he was able to have a beer with them if they came in, or a coffee. And that to me says, you know, some people scoffed at that, but what that means is that when you have that sort of relationship and have built that up, that when he rings, they'll take his call. And when there's something to be said from Dunedin and it's Jules ringing, they'll listen. And that's what he had. That's the sort of man he was. He built up a really strong relationship. For example, my connection with him goes further than even before I was born. My auntie actually flattered with him, which was quite funny. And he also went to school with my aunties. And he grew up just down the road from my mother and her family in Mataura. So there's a very long connection there. It's quite funny. And so, yeah, just I think certainly, as other people have said, he was very, almost I'd say, I don't think you mind me saying this, almost slightly obsessed with trying to get groins in St Clair, and any chance he had, he'd bring the issue up to the point that even I started to think, oh dear, I think this has gone too far. But he was determined, and it was a reason he could see it got, you know, that there was a benefit to what had been there, and he'd researched it, and he was really passionate about it. And it was another example of where he was following through. He wanted to complete it, and he'll be annoyed as hell he didn't get to finish that. But I also was really impressed with, for example, when he came into the role as mayor, I don't mean to be rude by saying this, but his te reo was terrible. And he'd go, te reo or te something, you know. And then by the end of his term, I was so impressed. He was so almost fluent in the things he was saying. I felt like he was even a bit better than me. And he would be, and I mean, I'm not fluent, but, you know, on his greetings. And he was really good. Yes, I'm sorry, don't fall off your chair with laughter, Marie. and so no, he was really, he'd picked that up really quickly, so which was great. But I could go on and I won't. But yes, certainly he always thought outside the square. For example, Cliff, the ambulance, was a great marketing tool, and that was Jules's idea. He just tapped a friend on the shoulder and said, can we have your ambulance for a while? And so that all came to fruition. And he certainly was, I would say he was quite an entrepreneur actually, but yeah, so thank you for giving us this time. It's been a sad time, but that's what's happened. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. I welcome Andrew to say a few words.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge everybody present, but also watching this on screen or now or in the future. Yeah, what a shock. Firstly, I want to acknowledge Pam, Genevieve and Vincent. This has been an extremely challenging time for them with the sudden loss of a husband and a father. The first time I really met Jules was through the Merrill campaign in 2019. He definitely made an impression, and I could see he was going to be on council for the 2019-22 council. He was professional, knew his stuff and showed passion for the city. We had similar views on quite a few issues, so I was happy when he was also elected to council in October 2019. During that term, we became good friends and bounced off on many issues. Where I could, I helped him through council processes and provided background information on where we were at with the issue of the day. We probably spoke nearly every day, especially through the COVID period. In October 2021, we started talking about the 2022 mayoral campaign. He was keen to run for the mayoralty, and together we agreed to put together Team Dunedin and bring on some good candidates to the team. It was a strong mix of people, and it was nice to have 3 Team Dunedin candidates elected as councillors and Jules as mayor. Jules was great at being the mayoral candidate. Chief policy writer, money raiser, event organiser, plus logistics manager for meetings, signage and flyer delivery. He got everyone organised. He loved the campaign, and the results were thanks to Jules. Through the 2 council elections and the council term, I noted the detail Jules would go to study the issues and the people we'd talk to. He always wanted to understand the issues and speak to the experts in the area. This approach made him an effective councillor and helped him to be a respected mayor. Jules was very focused on the community. As the councillor appointed to the Saddle Hill Community Board 2019 to 22, he was actively engaged with them and would turn up to key events. And yes, he was very effective at rubbish clean-ups or with shovel in hand. Jules was always there to help. At other times you could find him delivering firewood to families that were struggling, or at time of rain events filling sandbags and delivering them. He was a man that wanted to especially when help was needed. Jules was occasionally called out for being out of touch on some issues. When it came to the homeless, that many pass on a daily basis, they would call out to Jules and would ask how they were doing. He would know their names and what their issues were and why they were there. Again, he just didn't read council papers, but he took time to understand the issues from more than one angle. I also know how much Jules got out of doing the citizenship ceremonies. He was excited to chat to the new New Zealanders after the ceremony and have photos with them. He knew the importance that day meant to many. On his visits to Shanghai, he was highly regarded. Being fortunate to travel with him in November 2024, he strongly presented the city and set a positive tone for Dunedin with the Mayor of Shanghai and the government officials. He really enjoyed the site visits, whether it was a museum or a factory. More than anything, he loved promoting Dunedin when away from the city. Yes, walking down the street could take you some time. I thought I knew a lot of people in Dunedin, but Jules and I together it took us longer to get to coffee than to enjoy it. The funeral and comments on social media on his passing showed how well appreciated he was. Jules, you had a great trait of talking through your hands. The more your hands moved, the more important I knew the issue was going to be. So sitting off to the side, if I caught motion out of my right eye, I would stop and look up. I knew something important was coming. So in closing, Jules will always be associated with the groins at Sinclair. I think it is appropriate that another councillor picks up this issue and re-explores it through a notice of motion. Jules was great for the cafe business. I know how well he supported them. I know there will be a few of his local favourites that will be missing him. Jules will be also remembered for being the best dressed person in the room. He loved his clothes. But how could one of the biggest people I know drive the smallest car possible? Jules was a neat individual who contributed a lot. I couldn't always agree with him, but he made an impact at the council table as a councillor and as a mayor. I also know how much he was looking forward to this term of working with Mayor Barker and Deputy Mayor Lucas in getting things done for the city. Rest in peace, Jules. Thank you for what you did for Dunedin.
Thank you. Well, now the councillors may like to pay tributes. I'll start with Deputy Mayor Lucas.
Thank you, Mayor Sophie, for today. We all needed to take time out to reflect on Jules and his contribution to the city as the Mayor and as a City Councillor. We will miss his contribution around this table. He was intelligent, well-researched and inclusive. Thank you, Pam, Genevieve and Vincent, for the honour to reflect on Jules' service to Dunedin at the celebration of his life. It was a privilege. I don't intend to repeat much of what I said that day, but I do want to make a few comments. Until 3 years ago, I didn't know who Jules Raddick was. I met him when he had just been elected as the 59th Mayor of Dunedin in 2022, and I'd just been elected onto council. In September 2023, he asked me to be his Deputy Mayor, which was a great surprise to me. I was honoured to serve Dunedin as his Deputy. Because of this role, Jules and I developed a close working relationship, which turned into a true friendship. I'm pleased I got the chance to know him. I began to understand how unrelenting the role of mayor is and how lonely it can be. Hopefully I helped by being someone who he could talk to and help share the load. Jules was always positive no matter the situation and personally liked to solve the issues of the city, whether that be the homeless with his unsuccessful proposal for Aaron Lodge, his relentless investigation into the flooding of South Dunedin and particularly Surrey Street with his pipes and pump solution, and how to grow our city by looking at ways to retain the brains we train. He always wanted and worked to get consensus around the table and was disappointed when he couldn't achieve this, such as the two-lane of George Street, the Albany Street cycleway, and particularly the groins at St Clair. He had done a lot of research into groins, and I clearly remember him giving me many papers to read on this topic. He was passionate about it. But his legacy to the city will be the new Dunedin Hospital. He led the fight for the region to get the government to commit to build the hospital they promised. He worked tirelessly behind the scenes to advocate for the hospital. Few saw his full commitment. He did enjoy being in his temporary office at the top of Burns House, where he could oversee the hospital site and any work on that. Jules was respected by staff, particularly those who had daily contact with him. CEO Sandy, his EA Jess, along with Anna and also Kim, Lynn and the other GSOs, who I know have felt his passing deeply, along with past and present members of ELT and the communications team. He would always welcome you into his office with a smile and a cheery welcome, regardless of what he was doing, maybe cutting pieces out of the ODT about the council, researching council projects, or reading council papers. It was a true testament to Jules, with a huge turnout to farewell him, particularly from his time on council. Not only current and former councillors and community board members of Dunedin and further afield, past and present DCC staff, MPs and many, many members of the community who engaged with Jules. Some who came to public forums and public meetings objecting to what he and council were doing, but others who supported his work. He was involved across all areas of the community, and a true reflection came from one of those who messaged me. I'll miss the guy. I suspect his contribution will become visible as various projects unfold. I think this will be true across the city. Jules was gracious in his defeat as mayor and was excited to still be around this council table as he still had unfinished business. It's now up to all of us to finish those projects for Jules. And I'll finish as I did at Jules's farewell. Jules, you taught me so much. I valued your wisdom, your positivity and your intellect. Thank you for having more faith in me than I had in myself. It was my honour and privilege to serve the city as your Deputy Mayor. I know you love being a councillor, you love being the Mayor, you love being a councillor again, but you love being the Mayor the most. But over and above it all, you loved your family, your friends, and Dunedin and its communities the most. Dunedin is a better city because you served it. Rest easy, Jules. You truly did make a difference.
Thank you, Jerry. I'll ask councillors to just raise their hand when they feel they are ready to speak. Mandy? So I'm looking. Sorry. You were first in raising your hand. Thank you. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Mayor Sophie. First and foremost, thank you, Pam, Vincent, Genevieve, extended family and friends for showing the strength and love that you have for Jules by attending today or viewing online. This is a day of reflection for Jules's peers. I'm sure his family and friends will be able to gauge the sincerity of today's speakers, having shared Jules' private feelings. This is a place where the majority of my time on council has had Jules running the show from the mayoral chair at the head of the table. His passing has left a huge hole with life-lasting memories, which I am eternally grateful for. Jules had the rare ability to rise above cruel, calculating, two-faced behaviour. I often urged Jules to throw his toys and fight fire with fire, yet I never witnessed him doing so in the council environment. However, it was a different story if he ever had a splash of red wine on his white dinner suit shirt. Jules always sought to build bridges, and he possessed the uncanny ability to hide disappointment and keep smiling, much to the frustration of his political opponents. Jules played the team game, clearly shown by the respect he possessed for his foes, by the committee positions and all appointments he made as Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Sophie, for sharing the respect you had for Jules by appointing him Head of Infrastructure, an appointment he was so looking forward to working in, and I was looking forward to also being able to work alongside my knowledgeable friend as his deputy. Jules was an educator. Whether the subject was identifying a good wine, retaining sand on beaches, how to fillet fish, how to balance the city's finances. Lately, how to cook the perfect turkey. But wait, there's a few more. How to provide flood protection for South Dunedin. How to circumnavigate the South Island on a motorbike under 24 hours. How to act like a mayor should, or how we should take care of our own waste at Smooth Hill. Jules always had an opinion, and of course, his was always the correct one. There's no doubt we are influenced by the people we choose to be around, and I am richer for the fact that I was lucky enough to have spent time around Jules. In closing, I want to touch on a possible legacy that Jules can leave all councillors and journalists present here today on this day of reflection. I would like you all to reflect on if you portray Jules with balance, along with names or insults you may have printed or posted on social media prior to Jules's passing. If you are proud and have a clear conscience, good for you. If you have any feelings of guilt, may I suggest you reflect on Jules the gentleman and take a leaf out of the life of Jules Raddick to make yourself a better person. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Mandy?
Thank you, Mayor Sophie, and thank you, everybody. My heart goes out to Pam and to Genevieve and to Jules's family, to all of the DCC staff and to his colleagues. Aroha mai. Whānau was important to Jules, and this was shown at our first councillor's induction at Orokonui when he talked about his parents and his family and how important they were to him. He was moved to tears. This impressed upon me his values and his warmth. I first met Jules Vincent Raddick when I was only a baby, and for my lifetime I have bumped into him around the city, often at the supermarket. I will remember him always for Uptown Motorcycles, the shop that he ran for 20 years. He loved motorbikes as much as he loved Ōtepoti Dunedin. I looked up to him, massive smiling figure. He had charisma and presence. I recognised him in him as a little person, and he was nicknamed Cookie Bear. I never would have thought that we would have worked alongside each other and spent so many special moments as we did in these last 3 years. He was proudly officiating as I was sworn into council. At his first citizenship ceremony, he swore in Lee, my husband. I was with Jules the first time that he went to Katihurapa Runaka Te Puketaraki, and the last time that we were there together at Ōpuku David Allison's tangi. I'd introduced them to each other during his first elected term. Of Ngāpuhi descent, Jules was our 59th, but our first Māori mayor. One of the things that really resonated with me was Jules' commitment to supporting the homeless shelter and to the great lengths he went around Arran Lodge in a solution to the tents on the Oval. I would see Jules often speak to people in the street, to buy them food, and simply have the time of day for everyone. Of course, it's been mentioned many times how united we were on the hospital campaign. During his council term as mayor, he attended several Keep Dunedin Beautiful events, Trees for Families, planting events at Rotary Park. Happy to do the tree planting demonstration and always ordering 2 trees to plant, one for Vincent and one for Genevieve. At our annual awards, he took time to congratulate each group and individual for their volunteer mahi. He really got it. And the same of the recent West Harbour Local Heroes event. He was genuine, caring, personable and engaging. Happy to front up to the public at the farmers market, the South Dunedin community, and with Cliff, the ambulance on the hospital campaign, encouraging me to take Cliff for a spin. One great idea of his I'd like to see come to fruition is the inner city electric bus loop. Jules taught me lots of things, like how to scan photos and to do QR codes on my phone. Amazing. And all about the wonderful places in the world that he'd visited, his art interests, and of course his vast knowledge of motorbikes. There was never a shortage of conversation topics, from the macabre to the fantastical. We had a lot of laughs, and we had a few arguments. We didn't always vote the same, and I was certainly frustrated at times when he rode over my motions as the mayor. I may have banged my fists angrily on the table, so frustrating, but it was hard to stay cross at him. I may too have muttered boomer under my breath a few times, and I did mean it at the time, but I look back at my messages back and forth prior to my time on council mainly, and it was a lot about the groins. No surprises. After that, it was phone calls. They were a lot quicker and easier. He was very welcoming to me and my family, including my little girl Vita, who would visit his office several times. He always gifted her little things like a calendar or candy. Just small acts of kindness. She always laughed when she saw his little clown car. My mum had one funny story of their old student flat days many, many moons ago. If you asked Jules if there was beer in the fridge, he would go over, pick up the whole fridge, shake it, put it back down. If no beer bottles rattled, there was no beer. I particularly liked how he would always take the time to meet Pam each day, calling her as soon as a meeting had finished and then rushing to a cafe for a quick catch-up. The love was very evident to me. Jules, you didn't just lead, you inspired. Using your business and sports coaching skills to bring us together as a team, you tackled everything with gusto. You believed in people, even when they doubted themselves. You created a space for growth, confidence, and for ideas to flourish. I'll always be grateful for the lessons that you taught and the patience you showed and the encouragement that you gave. You said very many positive things to me personally about the impact I could have in my role. You listened. You challenged us all to do better. You balanced leadership with kindness, accountability with empathy. I remember asking you how it was going and if you were exhausted. You said no, you loved the role of mayor and you found it invigorating, energising, and you loved the challenges. So thank you for that energy and that guidance. You helped shape not just your work, but our growth as a team. And you'll be missed for not just what you knew, but for who you were. The measure of a man, a natural and charismatic leader. The impact you had goes far beyond a job title. You were genuine, you brought warmth to your role, and something sincere too, because you had a big heart and you cared. You left a mark on the people, on lives and on the city. The vibrancy of a well-lived life never fades. Mau mai rā, Jules. Thank you.
Kia ora, Mandy. Councillor Ong.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to just say a few words from the heart. My friendship with Jules was a very new one, and it was only for a few months as a new councillor. But when I heard the news of Jules's passing, I cried, and at the church I cried. And that was because I lost a friend, a new friend and a new mentor. Because from the very first day of the few months of my friendship with Jules, he showed me tremendous generosity and he reached out to me from day one. And I saw from him in that mentorship the qualities of his tremendous leadership. And I saw why, when he stood for mayor, he had a team behind him. And throughout his mayoralty, he had that team that was there. And I appreciate what Councillor Weatherall has shared. I appreciate the tremendous leadership that I got to see from Jules in that very short time of our friendship. And so I lost a mentor. And I want to say that in every moment forward in serving, I want to be able to continue and strive that much further to continue the tremendous leadership and legacy that Jules has given to our city and our community. And that is going to push me further every moment in what I do going forward. So I want to thank Jules, and I want to thank Pam and his family for the dedicated sacrifice that he made for our community, and a tremendous leadership of selflessness and grace. Thank you, Jules.
Thank you, Councillor Ong. Is anyone else is ready to speak? Christine.
Thank you, Worship. The sudden death of Councillor Raddick has been a huge shock for all of us. He had a big presence, and his absence today at our first council meeting since his passing is very evident. His death is still quite unbelievable. And on that note, I have a message from the Cristani family. Can you pass on our thoughts for his family and colleagues, please? It was a real shock to hear of his death, and it took a while to believe it. We appreciated his support for the Sophia Charter and his efforts in the community. I well remember the day that Jules strode confidently into the council chamber for public forum as a private citizen to regale us all with all things groins at St Clair. It was the first time that I had come in contact with him. His commitment to that project remained throughout his time as an elected member. Jules and I were the same age. I believe we both shared a love of the sea, but in every other aspect our views were diametrically opposed. However, there was an occasion recently where we certainly agreed, and he took the time to comment on that. It was the last day of the 9-year plan hearings, and he stopped me as I passed him in a break to ask me in a very earnest tone, had I organised the many members of the Peninsula and wider community to attend the hearings and speak in support of the completion of Te Awa o Tākou. It's extraordinary, he said, referring to the amazing turnout from every corner of the community, conveying a consistent message, complete the project. On the community turnout, we most certainly agreed. It was extraordinary, though that did not extend to the vote. One of Councillor Raddick's quirks was his concerns for all of us to avoid inflammatory adjectives, as has been referred to by Your Worship. I had one saved up. However, it was a verb, not an adjective, so I'm not sure it would have met the threshold, but we will never know. In conclusion, Councillor Raddick's untimely and sudden death should have reminded us all that for each of us around this table, we are more than our roles here. We have lives outside of council and family and friends who care deeply about us. That is what we need to remember above all else. In the spirit of that observation, my sincere condolences to Pam and Genevieve, who are here today, to Vincent and the extended family, at this deeply sad and challenging time for you all. Kia kaha.
Thank you, Christine. John?
Thank you, Sylvie. Yeah, I first spoke to Jules in 2024 on the phone. He called me about the proposed downsizing of the Dunedin Hospital. Despite the new hospital, despite reassurances given during the general election, significant cuts were planned in response to increasing costs projections. Less beds, fewer theatres, a smaller ICU. At the end of our talk, Jules asked me to give a submission to the council. And a week later, I was sitting in the chair just there, in front of Jules with his mayoral chains and the council. It was fairly daunting, but I got through the 5 minutes and a couple of questions. And I had the impression that the council were keen to get involved. But the events of the next few weeks simply blew my mind. The high-profile campaign, the media interviews, the T-shirts, the postcards, and the amazing march down the Octagon, led by Jules and the council. And Jules took the campaign all the way to Wellington to press the point, on more than one occasion, I think. And the result was a great success, a great victory for Jules, for local government, and for the public. And it was very humbling when, as a new council, we were shown around the site of the new inpatient block before Christmas. I could see firsthand the skilled work being done by the team of international construction workers. And when the building is completed, and it is built to its full original height as planned, which will be visible from this room, I think it will be a fantastic reminder of Jules' political legacy as a mayor. Now, as a councillor, Jules was happy in the role and ever present during a very intense induction process. He had plenty of advice to give and stories to tell to bring us up to speed. A special meeting was organised for new councillors with the residents of Surrey Street in South Dunedin. And Jules gave a fantastic presentation. He had photographs, plans, videos, some of which he'd taken himself, and he could answer any question, and he really owned the subject. And I came away from that meeting reassured that the works that had been approved by the council when Jules was mayor will really go some way to alleviate the situation in South Dunedin. And I think that it's our job to see that the works get done as planned. So Jules' unexpected passing was a great shock and a tragic loss for his family, friends, the council and the city. And thanks, Mayor Sophie, for arranging this fitting opportunity in his memory.
Thank you, John. Lee?
Jules was a decent bloke. Jules, in my experience of him, always did what he thought was the best thing to do, even though it wasn't necessarily always in his own best interests. As many others have pointed out, he was a very passionate man, and he believed a lot of things passionately, not all of which were helpful for him as mayor. One of them was that if you put enough rational evidence in front of people, they couldn't help but agree with you. What he did with his incredible research on the groins proved a point pretty early on that we're not fundamentally rational people, certainly not around this table. And that the emotional side of things and the ideological side of things are issues which any mayor has to really take very seriously. If Jules made any mistakes, I think that was probably the main mistake that he made. He assumed that other people would think the way he did, and that if all the rational arguments for something were there and it was pretty much inconclusive in his view, that other people would see it the same way. That sadly is just not the case. A number of people, including our Chief Executive Graham, have referred to Jules as being unrelentingly positive. And in his job, I think he did that extremely well. One of his correct assumptions, I believe, was always try to put a positive spin on things and smile all the way through. Something which I've singularly failed to do myself, but which he did extremely well. However, I believe he paid a price for that. I will always remember Jules with his big smile, his grin if it wasn't just a smile. But it was a bit different when he was smiling around the table or smiling in his official capacity than when he was smiling at Pam. Because when he smiled with Pam, there was no hardness there. It was genuine. There was no tension in his face. There was genuine love there. And I think it's Jules is gone now. I think it's Pam now that I really wish to give my best wishes to. Because in my relatively brief experience of Jules, only a few years, Pam really figured very largely as the true love of his life. He was a passionate man who had many loves of many things. I shared his love of motorcycles, for instance, but motorcycling is just a disease, and I've been in remission for quite some time now. We were of a similar age, but he was slightly older than me, just slightly. And when he used to pontificate, I used to shoot back at him and call him Dad. Yes, Dad, okay. Jules claimed to listen, and I gave him a lot of advice over the years, which he never really admonished me for, but which he never really took on board either. He had his assumptions, he had his views, he did his absolute best, and we are all lucky to have had a genuine and decent bloke like Jules to be our mayor. Thank you very much for all the wonderful things that have been said both here and especially at the funeral in First Church. I will always remember a number of different parts of that service. In particular, the Nana Nana chorus, but also Deputy Mayor Lucas's speech, which summed up better than I ever could what Jules was as mayor and how people who were close to him really appreciated him. I hope that Pam is able to walk away from today with dealing with grieving, but also being incredibly grateful that she had the opportunity to spend all that time with someone who truly loved her. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Russell.
To Pam, Vincent and Genevieve, you've heard a lot about what an amazing guy Jules was, and I've had some similar experiences and I know what you're going through, but can I just say you should be extremely proud, because Jules was this cheery, this strapping, this guy that exuded good health, cheer and vitality. He was kind and courteous. He was a gentleman. And I first met Jules in 2019. We were both candidates for the council at that time. And I took an instant liking to Jules, and he invited me over. We had a couple of coffees together and we got on extremely well. And of course he made it and I did not in 2019. And thereafter I would see him quite frequently at Catalyst. As it's been said, Jules loved his coffee and his cafes. And he'd be there with Mayoress Pam, and we would. He was always interested in the travails and adventures I had with the Lona Mercantile building. And I found out at the funeral that Jules was a teacher, which made a lot of sense to me, because as a new councillor, Jules was my guiding hand and my mentor, especially on the Albany Street cycleway, where I actually couldn't get him off the phone. But he was sort of the strategist, and I owe him greatly for that. And I also would like to say, as Brent has said, that Mayor Jules was not a negative man. He was not a vindictive man. He tried to build bridges. And one of my enduring memories just before Christmas was when he implored me to not write off, but to continue to reach out and to try and build bridges with a councillor who would be my polar opposite on this council, completely opposite to everything that I would stand for. And that was Jules. He was about building a team. He was a gentleman. One of my most cherished memories, in fact, is with a photo with Jules and myself at the opening or the announcement of the social housing at the Lona Mercantile building, which Jules, I know, championed for me. But it was a bit ironic that he was not allowed to vote on the final vote, because I'd allowed him to put a sign up on my building. But I do think that was one of the notable achievements of his mayoralty. So Pam, Vincent, Genevieve, we've lost a great man. You've lost a dad and a father, taken before his prime, far too early. My heart goes out to you, and God bless Jules. Rest in peace.
Thank you. Mickey?
Tēnā koe, Your Worship. Firstly, this is a strange post we hold as councillors. Like, new councillors like myself, we don't rise through the ranks of an organisation and form relationships with our future colleagues. Rather, we're scrutinised and compared and held in debate with them, and that can, as you'd imagine, create some personal friction. My experience with Jules, however, was quite the opposite. When the council first convened, he was warm and congratulatory and keen to get to work. As many others have said, he was very generous with his time and with his advice. He'd answer any question about council procedure, about council history, but perhaps more significantly is he had questions for me. To my surprise, he wanted to know about my background, the games industry, the experience of young people in the city. And so at a time when I was finding my feet, he made me feel like an equal and like a colleague, and I really appreciated that about him. We often had the chance to chat in the councillor lounge between debates, and he was generous there too, talking about his own life. I learned about his whakapapa up north, both Ngāpuhi and Dalmatian, about his childhood in Mataura, about our actually shared interest in Japanese woodblock prints, and he would often vigorously defend the honour of the Griffin's lemon cream biscuit, a controversial choice amongst governors. One of my more annoying habits is I wear this brooch, and I ask people, what do you think this looks like? It's kind of a little Rorschach test. And I don't think it would surprise anyone that Jules said, it looks like a city viewed from the air. Fundamentally, Jules was a very open, very public man, and I think his loss will be felt very widely and deeply for some time. So I'd like to pay tribute to Pam and Genevieve and Vincent, and just say, go well, Jules.
Kia ora. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor Barker, and I think acknowledgement to you for organising this today, aside from a full council meeting, because I think it's entirely appropriate, so well done for that. I'm still amongst the number of people in this room today who are expecting Jules to walk in and sit down there, and so I can only imagine what Pam and Genevieve and Vincent are going through. The day after Jules's funeral, I received a phone call from a man called Rob Fitzpatrick, and I don't know Rob, but he tells me he's a friend of Jules. And he's proposing an art installation to recognise Jules' contribution to the city. And we are meeting on Wednesday to talk about that. And the art installation, he has explained to me what he wants it to look like, and I'll just, you'll need some imagination to imagine this, but the art installation that he's proposing is a set of telegraph poles leading into the sea somewhere between Middle Beach and St Clair. And I think that's got merit, because it's wedding photos in Dunedin have not been the same since those poles disappeared. So I'm inviting those councillors present here today to the inaugural meeting at 3:30 on Wednesday at the Mitsubishi showroom in Andersons Bay Road, to meet with Rob and some other friends of Jules to discuss how we get this art installation in place. There will be some seed funding provided then and there to get this underway as a community project. And what I would say to the council and the councillors here today, and also to our friends at the regional council, if you think you're going to get in the way, watch out, because we've determined this. It will not be there to retain. If it retains some sand, that will be a bonus. But principally, it is going to be proposed as an art installation in memory of Jules Raddick and his contribution to the city. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Jules.
Thank you, Andrew. Marie?
Tēnā koe, Your Worship. Te mana whenua tēnei rohe, tēnā koutou katoa. Te whānau pani. Tēnā koutou. Thank you so much for your grace and patience I know from the passing of our mother in 2009 and our brother in 2016 that 3 weeks after the passing was such a raw time, and it's still raw. So thank you so much for your patience and aroha to us, to allow us to have this time. Acknowledgements to those who have spoken before me and those who will speak after me. I just want to pass on some reflections from members of the Pasifika and Māori communities, especially those involved with the Otago Polyfest, and they just wanted to acknowledge and remember Councillor Raddick, and then I think when he, particularly in his training him as mayor, his attendance at the opening ceremonies of those, especially the 30th anniversary of the Polyfest, or the 30th Polyfest in 2023. And we do have a picture of Mayor Raddick standing alongside the Minister for Pacific Peoples, and Tangilima Fileti is one of the chairs of the trust that organises Polyfest, and also Komini Cassidy was there speaking in terms of during the very serious opening ceremony, just acknowledging the journey of the Polyfest of 30 years, and now it's 32 years, going into its 33rd. So wanted to pass on particularly a memory that my sister, as general manager of that time, had for Pam and Genevieve and Vincent and his siblings and their whānau, the joy and the hours that he sat in the manuhiri lounge upstairs, and he was so delighted to just be in and watch the children, celebrate the children, support the children, and especially his delight and joy in watching the performance by St Kevin's College, came from Oamaru. I want to also read out a message from Whaanemo Elisara To'o, who is the CEO of the Pacific Trust of Otago, and she says she's got 3 main points. Mayor Raddick, in his time as mayor, he was really, really supportive of the PTO, and he was present, relational, and genuinely engaged. I experienced the mayor as highly present and engaged in his interactions with our Pasifika communities. His involvement was authentic and relational. He listened carefully, asked thoughtful questions, and made time to understand the realities and aspirations of our peoples, which built trust and a strong sense of mutual respect. 2, strong interest in Pasifika business capability and market readiness. He demonstrated a clear and practical interest in ensuring Pasifika peoples understood how to position and market their businesses effectively, and also he took an interest in Wananui's marketing. His focus went beyond participation to sustainability, recognising the importance of capability building, visibility and market access as key drivers of long-term economic success for Pasifika enterprises. 3, commitment to the long-term sustainability of Pasifika communities in Otago. I saw a genuine concern for the long-term sustainability and well-being of Pasifika communities in Otago. He understood that thriving communities require integrated thinking across culture, economy and social infrastructure, and he consistently showed interest in approaches that would support enduring community-led outcomes. And on a personal note, I just want to say to Jules, I'm sure you're here with us. I just want to thank you so much. Even though we were on different sides of the political spectrum sometimes, I've come to think since your passing that it's not a line, it's actually circular, so we're not too far apart. And I just want to thank you for the trust that you showed me in giving me the positions of responsibility that you did. And I want to finish off by just doing a comment from Jeanette Wikaira. In 2020, they met for coffee when Jeanette first started working for council. And Jules had told Jeanette about his Dalmatian and Yugoslav and Māori Ngāpuhi whakapapa, and how his dad went to Goa and met his mum and never left. And Jules, I'm sure Jules or Jeanette won't mind me saying that they talked about the reasons that Jules had chosen not to be strong in his whakapapa Māori side because in his taha Māori because of the stories of colonisation and the impact of colonisation leading to domestic violence in Ngāpuhi whānau and whānau throughout it's not just confined to Māori whānau, it's all whānau, but I just want to offer a waiata from Ngāpuhi, and it just celebrates the journey, and it says in English, listen to the voice that is crying out and see pouring out from my eyes the tears. But as the sun shines, the pain disappears and the sadness falls away. Don't hold any anger, for this is another day. Maranga mai, rise up, all of you, of all the hapu of Ngāpuhi, and hold firmly and securely and forever to the great teachings. Mā lo whaawhitai, Jules, ia manuelo malanga, safe be your journey. Whakarongo mai, ki te reo e tangi nei, e ringi hia mai ana, mai aku ka mo, ngā roi matai. Whiti mai te rā, ngaro ana te mamai, ngaro noa te pauri, kaua mai riri, anei ano he rā. Maranga mai he te iwi, o ngā hapu Ngāpuhi, kia mau, kia hu, kia pu, puri ai, ki ngā akoranga nui, maranga mai, maranga mai, maranga mai, maranga mai.
Kia ora. Thank you, Marie. Steve.
Thank you very much, Marie, and thank you very much to the Mayor for holding this day. Listen, it would probably be remiss of me not to start with saying I'll be brief, because it was something I say around here often, and it used to drive Jules mad that I'd say it and then proceed to go beyond my time. So apologies for all those times, Jules. There's not much I can add beyond what everyone else who knew him way better than I ever would have done. But I thank those who have spoken so passionately and kindly about Jules. It's no secret to anyone around here that Jules and myself crossed swords on many an occasion. As many have mentioned, I'm one of that intake of 219, along with Carmen, Sophie, Jules and myself. And for those councillors who are old and new and past, you'll understand it's a tough gig, eh? It's tough around the table. And I think, if nothing else, although Jules and I crossed swords, we, in some weird way, became, I guess, going back to what Marie says, it's a circular game here that we ultimately came to respect in some weird and almost warped way each other's divergent views, and sometimes that's all you can do. And apart from this council chamber, ironically, in many ways, the most time I spent with Jules was at the monthly citizenship ceremonies. I attend them all, and of course the mayor had to attend them all because he officiated. And through that process, I think weirdly at some point, probably a year or so in, Jules would yet again look into the audience, and there I was in the front row. And it was probably about almost 2 years in, he probably got sick of me because he started mentioning my presence at the beginning of the ceremony. And I'll never forget his words. He would say, and also welcome to Councillor Walker, an immigrant himself. And I respected that. And it's not often when myself and Jules was talking that I get a smile out of him, but I did get a smile out of him after one of the citizenship ceremonies, about, again, 2 years in, when I afterwards took him to the side and said, "Jules, I want to tell you something." I said, "You realise that you perform these ceremonies way better than Aaron did." And he sort of had a wee think about it and asked me why, and I'll keep it to myself because I don't want to disrespect Aaron in any way, but he did have a wry smile and appreciated that comment. Listen, I just want to say finally, because I was away for the funeral up north, and I just want to say to Pam, really to you and your whānau, deepest condolences, and the private message I sent you, that promise remains forever.
Thank you, Steve. Doug?
I want to acknowledge the passing of Councillor and former Mayor Jules Radich. I did not know him for long, but in that time I spent with him, he impressed me as a good man, thoughtful, principled, and genuinely committed to Dunedin. Jules has brought a very human warmth to the council table. He loved good coffee and he appreciated a glass of wine, and those small things often sat alongside his serious focus on making this city better. My condolences to Pam and fan friends and to all that worked with him closely. He will be greatly missed.
Thank you. I welcome Paul Ware, the Chair of the Saddle Hill Community Board.
Kia ora everyone. Thanks for having me along, inviting me. It's an honour to speak for the Saddle Hill Community Board. Jules was, go on to the 2019 group again. Jules jumped aboard Saddle Hill Community Board, and I remember meeting him the first time because he picked up my Southland accent. And he goes, "You're from Southland?" And yeah, go. And he goes, "I'm Jules from Aotearoa." And I was like, nice. And then he goes, "What do you do?" And I go, "Oh, I'm a surveyor." And he goes, he sort of had that wry smile, and then his hand started talking. He goes, surveying. So he'd done a bit of it himself. So he had a good yarn about working overseas and what insects and snakes we've been bitten by or chased and things. So one of the things I admire about Jules and picked up from was his respect for people, and I know it's been said again and again. Just even though we didn't agree on everything, he still respected my view, and I'd try and respect his. But just through working with him, being a teammate with him, and an honour to call him a friend as well, he had taught me quite a few things, and he'd always have words of advice every now and again, and maybe something to do with parenting or wine or marriage or surveying or something. But so he always, whenever I saw him, he'd say something, a bit of advice. But I remember one time we were sandbagging out Ocean View, and Jules was like, "Oh man, I don't know how you can do it." He goes, "My back's a bit sore," and I said, "Oh, okay, here's my bit of advice for you, Jules. Neurofen before sandbagging and after." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I'll remember that, lock that one in." But I just want to say to Jules' family, thank you very much for lending him to us. He's an awesome guy to work with, and also a lot of people up at work, because they come from overseas, did their citizenships, and Jules gave them their citizenship here. And the amount of respect that man has got from people overseas at Oceana Gold Mine is huge. So I just want to pass on the respect from everyone there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you everyone for your tributes to Jules. I'm sure they mean a lot to everyone in the room and to everyone that wasn't able to be here today. Our special memories do live on in our hearts, and all that he meant to all of us. He made a great impact both personally and professionally to us all. His service to our city was greatly valued by the community we all represent. He touched all of our lives, and we will miss him dearly. It is traditional to present former councillors with a certificate of service, so I will move the motion and then present the certificate to Jules's family. I move that the Council records its sincere thanks to the late Jules Reddick for the loyal and conscientious service he has given to the Dunedin community as a councillor for the 3 years from 2019 to 2022, Mayor for the 3 years from 2022 to 2025, and councillor for 3 months from 2025 to 2026. Second, Deputy Mayor Lucas. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Thank you. That is carried, and I would like to give a certificate.
No. I just want to thank Sophie, Mayor Sophie, for having this wonderful special council meeting and all your beautiful tributes. I really just want to say thank you for all your love, your kindness and support that you've extended to myself, Vincent, Genevieve and our family. And I do just want to reiterate, when Jules was no longer Mayor and taking on the councillor role again, he was so excited to be doing that. He still said he had so much to do, because I was constantly saying, are you sure you want to do this? But no, he was just so passionate. And I just want to reiterate what Cherry said to you all. He loved being a councillor initially. He loved being mayor. He was rapt to be councillor again, but he did say to me he preferred to be mayor. So, so I just want to thank you all so very much. You've just been such a big part of his life, and yes, it's hard now because words are difficult. Haven't actually processed all of this, but I'm just, as I said to Genevieve and Vincent, we are going to have a beautiful life, but it, you know, and that's because we've had Jules in our life for so long that he's, you know, he will always be with us. So thank you so much for this. Thank you for being a big part of his life, his work family, and thank you for today. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. I declare our meeting closed, but not our love for Jules, which is ongoing. Thank you, everyone. Sorry. Closing karakia.
Kia ora. Unuhea, tūru tapu nui. Kia mama, kia wāte, te nākau, tinana, me te wairua, i te ara takutū, ko i rā e rō, whakairi ake ke ruka, haumi e hui e tāi ki e. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, Edward. Sorry for jumping the gun.
Some things don't change around here.